50 years ago, a group of the smartest students went to Vegas and scammed the casinos for more than $10 million. Let's see how they managed to do it. How it all started. It all begins in 1979 in MIT's Burton Corner House. A group of brilliant students had taken an interest in the mathematics of gambling and dedicated their time and analytical skills to resolving one major question that puzzled many of them for years. Would it be possible to beat the casinos at their own game? Now, while casinos offered a variety of games that were largely based on luck, one of those games stood out as the one that could be beaten only with critical analysis and mathematical brilliance, and that was blackjack. The brains of the operation was J.P. Massar, an MIT student who first took interest in the game of blackjack after he sat down in a conversation with some friends and played over the idea of predicting the cards of a blackjack game using a theory called card counting. Their ideas came from a course called How to Gamble If You Must, an MIT study that taught students practical knowledge of probability, statistics, and the dynamics of gambling in casinos and being stuck in a situation where you had to either gamble or lose. Massar was intrigued by the knowledge he had acquired and the world of possibilities for implementing them. He decided to form a small, dedicated team to learn everything they could about blackjack, test out their skills, and make tons of money while doing it. However, the gambling world was much different from what they had hoped. Knowledge meets reality. Blackjack was a game which relied on fixed probability, so it wouldn't be insane to think that a person could beat it with skill, but the ability to predict the outcomes through the method of card counting would not be an easy feat. Massar soon figured out that the game was beatable if you had more players from your own team at the same table, and you were all able to discreetly communicate which cards you held. The team did this by allocating numerical values to cards, which allowed them to signal to each other the total value of the cards that were dealt. If the value of the cards dealt is known, it would be easier to predict which cards were hidden in the remaining deck. This knowledge would influence their betting decisions, and higher-valued cards like tens, aces, and other face cards were targeted as they have higher payout chances. But there's a problem. Card counting was not exactly legal. As a matter of fact, it was mostly a gray area and was not a punishable offense, but it wasn't openly accepted at casinos because it eliminated the edge over the player. Casinos have always been aware of the tactics of card counting, and to tackle the problem, they've often put up measures in place like using more card decks, random and frequent shuffling to confuse the counters, and even using installed cameras to detect unusual signaling behavior. If that behavior became consistently successful at any point, casinos would ask the player to leave, forfeiting the game. Massar and his team took a trip to Atlantic City in the summer to test out their theory. The team was confident that they could leave the casino with a good amount of money. Sadly, though, they failed to execute those plans effectively and lost everything. As expected, some members of the team were so devastated that they decided to quit completely. Massar and his close friend Jonathan were not deterred by the huge loss, only seeing it as a minor setback, and they set out to refine their techniques. The first thing they did was to create adverts to recruit new members from the MIT student body. They created a blackjack course on card counting to train new members, and their recruitment adverts would spread like wildfire all over campus. In short time, they had caught the attention of a blackjack professional by the name of Dave, who loved gambling and everything associated with it. With his skills in the game and the academic knowledge of other students, Massar was confident that his brand new team was going to be a great improvement over the previous one. The team dedicated its time and effort to breaking down the complexities of card counting and building strategies that would upset the very structure of blackjack at the casino. They even visited casinos, planning their separate entrances to look like they were strangers to each other, and it was all part of the plan. Initial success. Dave offered to sponsor the team on a trip to Atlantic City. It became an important decision because while other casinos had strict rules against card counting, Atlantic City was a bit more flexible in the sense that card counting was legal, but the casino also implemented measures to ensure the odds remained in their favor. The team recruited more players, and with a $5,000 bankroll, they made their way to Atlantic Atlantic City. They played with the entire tactic that they had practiced, and by the end of the day had accumulated $20,000. The team was overjoyed at their success and did not waste any time at all to begin recruiting more members. They now had proof that the strategy could yield success, and the sooner they could replicate that in other casinos, the better. The team expanded and continued to play in various capacities, winning most of their games, and their finances would grow over time. Their consistent success was a testament to the effectiveness of the card counting technique. All throughout 1980, their growth would be exponential, and they even took a few losses, but their gains were more than the losses in the end. Although the team was making money, they had lacked a certain level of coordination, and sometimes those inconsistencies would lead to misunderstanding. The problem was not in the skill. They were quite skilled at the time, but they simply lacked professionalism and structure, which would often show when casinos switched up on their countermeasures. And so it was now time to bring in someone who could serve as a cohesive force to the team, and that's where Kaplan comes into play. Kaplan's methods. In 1980, Massar met an unlikely person who would later become a major asset to the team. But who was this mysterious professional that had earned Massar's admiration? It was Bill Kaplan. You see, Kaplan had earned a BA in Harvard 3 years previous and deferred his admission to business school for 1 year. During that time, he had moved to Las Vegas, formed a blackjack team of his own, and then taught them everything he knew about the statistical analysis of card counting. He used his $1,000 graduation cash as capital to play in Vegas with his part-time team, and in just 9 months, he turned $1,000 into $35,000. He graduated business school in May of 1980, and by then the team had been flagged in almost every casino in Nevada. So they needed a fresh start, preferably on the international circuit. Kaplan knew that he couldn't manage his team once they left the United States, so he was forced to part ways. Massar heard about Kaplan's success and brilliance in executing card counting techniques and asked him if he would follow the team to Atlantic City to observe their game and even give his expert opinion. Kaplan, on the other hand, saw it as a serendipitous meeting and an opportunity to recruit and train a brand new team for himself. Kaplan accepted the offer and observed Massar's team while they played blackjack at the Atlantic City Casino. He observed their techniques were different from his, and in his opinion, they were overly complicated and incoherent, which had often made their play inefficient. Kaplan told Massar of his observations, adding that he would be willing to be part of the team on the condition that it would be run as a business venture. The team had to operate with standard procedures under formal management, with a strict training regimen that ensured players were adequately prepared before playing in the casinos so as not to waste any funds. He proposed a rigid player approval process which required players to learn new and strict systems in order to be approved as competition ready. He expressed his belief in the team, telling them that he was ready to put in the resources to ensure their growth. Some of the team's members kicked against the changes and were not happy about the idea of learning new methods or even changing how things were done, and so they left. But some believed in the structure that Kaplan had proposed and knew it would go a long way in building the team further, so they stayed. The new team would be made up of Kaplan, Massar, and 10 players, known as the MIT Blackjack Team. Casino takeovers. On the 1st of August 1980, the team began with a capital bank of $89,000 that had been sourced from investors and individual players. In just a 10-week span, they had hit a profit that exceeded twice the amount they started with. The profit per hour on games was $162.50, and players were paid according to their playing hours. Over those 10 weeks, undergraduates could earn $80 an hour, while investors got 250% on their annual return. The team then grew to 35 members, which allowed them to hit more casinos at the time, and they would shuffle themselves to ensure that they weren't seen too often on the premises of each establishment. By 1984, they had achieved capitalization of $350,000, but there was also one small problem. Kaplan was now on the watch list of many casinos, if not all of them. He would be closely followed and monitored wherever he went, and his team members were spotted and then sent out of the casino immediately. This became terrible for business, so Kaplan decided to leave the team and fall back on real estate investing. Massar then took over as the lead, and by 1989, the team had enlisted 22 partnerships with returns that ranged from 4% to as high as 300%. 20% per year. The MIT team grew to almost 80 players in the next 2 years, with as many as 30 players at different casinos around the world, especially in the United States and Canada. Many of those casinos were losing money to the organized chaos, while the team continued to make profits and fill their pockets. Casinos turned up the heat on blackjack, scrutinizing every play and player while monitoring every player's moves. MIT's team members began to get a little sloppy, and security at casinos could identify and ban them from ever coming back, but those banned players were simply replaced with new recruits, not only from MIT, but from other schools like Harvard and other institutions. The real problem began when casinos hired investigators to conduct deep research on their blackjack table losses, which had become a widespread problem for every casino in Las Vegas. MIT discovered. After weeks of research, investigators found that all of the banned players had addresses near Cambridge and were in some way connected to MIT. They appeared to be an organized group, but the truth came to light when the investigators got their hands on the most recent MIT yearbook. They then added up the photographs to their database, and the team knew that their days would be numbered, so they paid out their investors and dissolved all the partnerships on the 31st of December in 1993. Before the heat could escalate, the team was on a roll. On one particular weekend, they made over $400,000, and the casinos in Vegas reported a combined loss of $10 million to card counters. And you have to remember, card counting wasn't exactly a crime, but it could get a player sent out of the casino or even banned because there was no legal case. Picking up the pieces. After the dissolution of the team, some players took their winnings and formed two different groups. The Amphibians were led by Simeon Dukac, and the Reptiles were coached by Mike Aponte. These teams grew to more than 50 recruits at one time and millions of dollars in investments. The MIT Blackjack team had dissolved after more than 15 years of blackjack tyranny, and its members had drifted into other businesses in various parts of the world. In 1999, one of its top members won an annual blackjack ball competition, which was featured in the October 1999 Cigar Aficionado article. The heading read, "The most feared man in the casino business." But if only the author had known the truth, the MIT Blackjack team were the most feared men in the casino industry. What did you think about how these students scammed Vegas for $10 million? Let me know all about it in the comments down below. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel so you'd never miss another great video like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.